You could already see the stories being written about how the Chargers would still charger under Jim Harbaugh and how Justin Herbert could not come up in the clutch, except for he did come up in the clutch, and the Chargers did not charger as they found a huge win on Sunday Night Football.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you all for always making us your first listen. We appreciate the everydayers out there, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, the Chargers are 7-3, and we got a heck of a show for you guys today.
Yes, we do. Hallelujah, man. What a great win to be able to get here and celebrate here today with everybody. And man, it felt great in the first half. The Chargers were dominating. They could not do any wrong on offense or defense. And then the second half happened and everything changed. It definitely made you want to put your head in a hole and hide because you had that overwhelming feeling of dread that the Chargers were going to charger and lose another game they should win, until they didn't. They get a big time victory. They improved to 7-3, and they all but punched their ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge boost to their playoff chances, barring a huge collapse. But today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. David, that is the story. The Chargers didn't charger in this one when they had every chance to do it. In some way, they did, because they allowed, 21 straight points in the second half after building a 21-point lead. It evaporated quickly. But at the end of the game, when everything was going wrong, right? Like the defense could not get a stop, and they were letting the Bengals move the ball all over them. And the Chargers offense was completely stuck in the mud and couldn't get out of its own way. I mean, missed passes, drop passes, contested balls, batted balls, everything was going poorly. But the defense gets a stop at the end, gives Justin Herbert another chance after he'd missed Lad McConkey the drive before. Things did not go their way. It was all setting up for disaster. The defense gets a stop, and then Justin Herbert breaks out of his cold streak, finds Lad McConkey for 2 big plays for 50-plus yards. J.K. Dobbins puts the cherry on top with a 29-yard rushing touchdown where it's like, yeah, is it going to go down? Is he not going to go down? Score the touchdown, live to, bear the consequences of that. And what it was a huge, big-time win on Sunday Night Football when it looked like it was headed for disaster.
Yes, it surely was. I mean, in the second half of that game, the Chargers offense, like many times this season, it went dormant. It went cold, and they had to try to really go out there and find some offense. And it took a big play by a superstar linebacker in the making, Deion Henley, getting pressure on Joe Burrow, speeding him up, making him have to get rid of the ball before he wanted to, and the ball falls harmlessly to the turf, getting the ball back to the Chargers, and Justin Herbert put his cape on, and he was at his best. 2 beautiful throws to Lad McConkey, 28 and 27 yards to get them in pretty much position to win the game. If they wanted to go out there and kick a field goal and just ice it and be done and just run it down and kick it, they could have done that. But J.K. Dobbins had other ideas. He said he spoke to the running backs coach, and he spoke to Bradley Bozeman, and they both just said, hey, F it, go score. I don't care. Let's go put the exclamation point on this performance here. Let's leave as little time as possible for them to try to come back. And that's exactly what they did. A beautifully blocked run to the left side where J.K. Dobbins finishes it by leaping into the end zone and giving the Bengals only 18 seconds to try to come back and win this game. And they cannot.
Absolutely. I mean, it was awesome to see them break through at the end, especially because the Bengals sent everyone, and everybody in that building knew that J.K. Dobbins was getting that football, and he still found a way to break 4 tackles, get into the end zone anyways. And I just thought it was great and very symbolic of just where the Chargers have come from, and them not being too small in the biggest moment in the game on both sides of the football. I thought that was just great. And I think for a team in a locker room that's had a lot of guys who have gone through those devastating losses as much as the fans have and have taken it harder even than them.
Yeah.
to have everything going this direction, to have players like Joey Bosa say, hey, we still feel like, I still felt like it was going to collapse. But then to have it not collapse and to come through and shine in those big moments on prime time when you've had what the Chargers have had in their past, a huge step in the right direction as far as where this culture wants to go and the Chargers putting an end to charging. Is it going to happen? Did it feel like it was going to happen? Yeah, it could happen. But like, these are games the Chargers lose in the past. So they did catch a couple breaks. The Bengals missed 2 field goals. That Chargers won by 7, so I don't care that much. And I think that big thing here, Jim Harbaugh called for these fans to go out to this game. The Chargers fans showed up in a big way, a huge Chargers presence, a home field advantage. Those fans could have gotten sent home with the worst possible taste in their mouth and no reason to go back and potentially have their heart broken in person again. They came through, and it was a huge win for their playoff standings just for this team, and I think for their belief that they can go up against a guy like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and come away with the win. But let's talk about Justin Herbert, because it was a really weird game from him. 10 for 14, 183 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. And then suddenly he's ice cold, right? Balls are getting batted at the line of scrimmage. You have, a couple of bad drops, right? You have all of these things starting to go wrong. And it's hard. It's easy to forget like how good he was in the first pass, David, like running the football, multiple 29+ yard runs. He's made crazy throws to Quentin Johnson, running up, sucking the defense in, hitting them over the top, a crazy throw to Will Dissly. Like, he was unbelievably hot and then got unbelievably cold.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely locked in the first half. I mean, some of the throws that he was making is like, okay, Justin Herbert is establishing himself in the MVP conversation. Yeah, I know he doesn't have a lot of the big, sexy yardage and the touchdowns, but, he's got 13 touchdowns to 1 interception. Like, I mean, that's spectacular play from Justin Herbert. And yeah, in the first half, it just felt like he couldn't do any wrong. Like, he was throwing it all over the yard, hitting everybody, and in the second half, to the Bengals' credit, they made some changes, took some corners out, put some other younger guys in, and they were able to come up with some better production. And the second half was ugly. The first half was great, but the second half was 5 punts, 1 field goal, and a lost fumble that the Chargers had to overcome to be able to put themselves in position to win the game. And man, it was looking really bad, till that last drive, and then Justin Herbert found it again and really put the team on his back, put the Chargers in position to go win the game, and that's exactly what they were able to do.
And it's really hard to criticize him, for the cold streak, because there were some weird moments in it. Like I said, a couple drops, a couple batted balls, things like that. Just a couple missed throws, like Lad McConkey wide open the play before they went and drove and got that game-winning touchdown.
Very
uncharacteristic. And I think he tried to aim it a little bit just because he was so wide open. He just wanted to loft it, didn't want to try to laser it into him. But still, I mean, I think if Lad hadn't hurt his shoulder, he probably catches it anyways.
Probably.
But there was just a couple plays like that. One just out of the reach of Quentin Johnson. I did not like that they just decided that, hey, we're just going to throw the ball down the sideline to Quentin Johnson. 2 catches on 8 targets. I didn't think Quentin Johnson was bad necessarily. I just didn't like the usage of him.
Yeah.
That's not what his game is. And he doesn't attack the football well in those situations. He's not coming back to the quarterback, going up to get it. That's what's so impressive about someone like Lad McConkey, which we'll talk about. But for Justin Herbert, you saw, even in this game, we're talking about flashy stats, like the completion percentage sucks in this game. It's spiky, throwaway, stuff like that too. But we're looking at, 350 yards of offense from this dude as well, right? So it's like he's putting up the stats. That was a really bad, turnover by him. He has to get down in that situation. You have to know when to fight those battles. It was nice to see him bowl somebody over, but that's a good learning experience for him, and he's very smart, and that's going to be something that he keeps with him. But man, what can you say about Lad McConkey here, David? I mean, Chargers wide receiver 1 going off on this game the way he did.
6 catches, 123 yards, a log of 20.5 yards per reception for Lad McConkey. He was a big play freak in this game. And second career 100+ yard receiving game. And like I said, the big 27 yard receptions that really put the Chargers in position to win this game.
They don't win it without Lad McConkey, and Lad McConkey, for Justin Herbert, just to even trust him in those moments, in the biggest moments of the game, knowing the game's on the line, and for him to go back, to him back-to-back in those big opportunities. I just love the way that he attacks the football too, man. You lob it up to him on that last drive, maybe a little bit underthrown, he comes back to the football, high points it. Great play. And then just how open he got in that scenario at the end of a game to put the Chargers in field goal range. That was the game right there. The Chargers likely would have won it. But what did we see in the Broncos-Chiefs game? what did we see in the Packers-Bears game? Those field goals aren't sure things. And you can still, lose on a blocked field goal as well. J.K. Dobbins get in the end zone. But one of the things that I took away, a major thing, even with the defense giving up the most points they have all season, was Justin Herbert has a defense that got him another chance at the end of a game. They didn't come through offensively the first time, but his defense gave him another chance and let him be the hero. So we're going to talk about that defense and how concerned we are about that big performance the Bengals had, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Hillsdale College, because history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic, fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and so much more. And all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, and you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. I also need to tell you guys about PrizePicks, because PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and there's no surprise to me why that is, because PrizePicks is the easiest way and most exciting way to play daily fantasy football, because with PrizePicks, it's just you versus the projections, right? You don't have to pick a lineup and hope somebody doesn't have 90% of the same lineup as you. You just go and find the more or less on the projections, the 2 to 6 player stat projections that you like, and let the winnings roll in. And one of the great things is PrizePicks is the best way to get action on most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And even though you guys missed the Chargers game, there's still tonight's action. You guys can still get on tonight, go more than or less than on CJ Stroud's passing yards, or Nico Collins returning, and how much better that offense would be. That'll be a lot of fun too. All you have to do, download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, David, let's talk about the Chargers defense, because like I said, one of the main takeaways I really took from this game was he got another chance. Man, like, how many times do we see Justin Herbert, and like, people forget how clutch he was because of how bad it was for the Chargers in late game situations last year with Kellen Moore in that offense. Makes people forget that the dude has like 10 game winning drives in fourth quarter comebacks, 10 plus, I should say. But this game, he didn't do it. They blew it, and Josh Palmer, another play where it's like Justin Herbert makes a ridiculous throw to Josh Palmer on third down, the drive before they go win the game.
Yeah.
That's a highlight if he catches it, right? It's a contested catch, so it's hard to fully blame Josh Palmer for it, but it's just like, Justin Herbert wasn't as bad, I think, is what that cold streak showed. But when the offense really failed and seemed to set up the Bengals with a prime opportunity to go snatch that game away from him, the Chargers defense came up clutch. And that's where I want to start this, David, because yes, they did give up 21 straight plays on 3 drives, right? 21 plays, 21 points over 3 drives straight. Yeah. And that was brutal, and it felt like it happened in the snap of a fingers, and it was quite a whirlwind. But when it came to late, and the Chargers needed to get a stop and needed another chance, and it looked like everything was going against them, and they could easily give up the game-winning field goal, they stood firm. And I thought that's my biggest takeaway from this defense is, hey, in this game, huge game against an elite quarterback, the best wide receiver duo in the league, and they came up with a much-needed stop.
They sure did. And hey, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, they're all fantastic players, and they're going to get theirs, right? And they did. They got theirs in this game. They did. They scored the 3 touchdowns that Joe Burrow got. They went to those 2 gentlemen, and it wasn't Jamar Chase that torched him. It was T. Higgins that torched him pretty much all game. 9 for $148 and a long touchdown on 4th down, which really, really sucked to see that and feel that, because I was like, oh man, here we go again. Like, the Chargers are going to dominate in the first half. I mean, how could you not feel like it's another Jacksonville game, right? Like, that's what comes into your mind. That's what overtakes how you feel in those moments. But the Chargers, after, having a horrendous second half for the majority of that half, they buckle up and they bow up that last drive, and they're able to make the plays and tighten up the coverage to get off the field and get their offense just one more chance. And when you give Justin Herbert another chance, we know that he is good enough to go down and go win a football game for you. You hadn't seen it in a while, but he reminded everybody in this game that he can do it, and you better expect it going forward.
Yeah, only one game-winning drive / fourth quarter comeback last year out of 17 games, and they were in the position to come back a lot because they were a bad team.
Yeah.
To get that opportunity, for them to give him that opportunity was really awesome. And I think that when you look at how they gave up the most points that they have all season, well, first, actually, I want to talk about Derwin James, too. I hope that last play, because the Bengals had a Hail Mary attempt, and Derwin James is the guy back there starting 8 yards in the end zone, and it's do not let anyone catch his ball. Joe Burrow with pressure in his face, and I kind of like that they rushed him and didn't just let him sit back there and try to buy time and, set it up perfectly. He had to throw it up there, made an incredible throw down to the 1 yard line. T. Higgins goes up and gets it, has the ball in his hands. I firmly believe he's catching a touchdown pass until Derwin James is right there to break it up. So hopefully that can help Derwin James' confidence. He had a bad missed sack in this game, but just seeing him and having that team rally around him in that moment was awesome. But to me, why they came up or gave up that many points came down to 2 plays. 4th down and goal, up 27-6. Chargers send the house and leave Cam Hart, who I love, who's been super impressive. One-on-one with Jamar Chase with outside leverage, giving it basically a free slant touchdown, and still covered it decently well considering the stakes. But you can't let that opportunity happen. And then, like you said, you have the play later on where you're giving up a 40-plus yard touchdown on 4th and 2, and that's not the first time we've seen them, get beat by staying at the sticks.
No.
So when you see that, David, like, how much concern do you have? Because that is, 27 points. They hadn't given up more than 20. They gave up 21 in the second half alone. This was easily their worst performance from that regard. T. Higgins goes 9 for 148 in a touchdown. Does that concern you going forward with obviously some other really good offenses coming up on the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it concerns me going forward, just because I expected that the Bengals were going to give it everything that they absolutely had in this game. They were desperate, right? Their backs were against the wall. They were playing for their playoff lives. The sliver of hope that they had, it was snuffed out by the Chargers in this game. But, they were going to go out there and give it everything that they absolutely had, and they did in that second half. Joe Burrow was on fire. I mean, he was absolutely letting it rip, and he was throwing it down the field. But, hey, the Chargers had no Khalil Mack in this game, who is a huge difference maker on the edge. Cam Hart left with a concussion. Denzel Perriman left with an injury. They were cycling guys in at the cornerback position, in and out. So I wasn't expecting the Chargers to shut down the Bengals completely. But I am happy that they were able to give that offense one more chance at the end to be able to pick up a big time victory. But yeah, I expected this team to score points. I really did. But at the end of the day, Chargers got the win.
That is the biggest thing. And it feels terrible if you end up allowing it to go the other way, right? But, like, you're not going to blow everyone out. They've blown out their last 3 opponents before this one. So, I mean, it looked like they were headed for their 4th, really convincing double-digit win in a row. It's hard to do that in the NFL. Like, I knew, and, like, also, but can we talk about the fact that they kind of got left hung out to dry by their offense a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
I love the fact that Greg Roman came out and wanted to be aggressive, and why not let Justin Herbert throw it the way he was slinging that thing in the first half? I understood it. But the downside of that, when you come out and be super aggressive coming in the second half, is you could have 3 straight incomplete passes, run no time off the clock, and all of a sudden they're putting up 14 points in, a span of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it can all kind of fall apart. And now all of a sudden your, 3 touchdown lead is down to a 1 touchdown lead, and then a 0 touchdown lead in a tie game. So I think the Chargers missed a couple of big sacks that really would have changed the outlook on things too, right? Derwin James misses a big sack. Joey Bosa misses a big sack. That led to a touchdown, both of those. I think the Chargers have kind of a 4th down problem too, David. I mean, that's now 9 of 14 4th downs the Chargers have allowed. And I just think when you're looking at the Jesse Minter stats and how good this defense is against pretty much everything, that sticks out. Got to get a couple more stops on 4th down.
Yeah, you do. I mean, those are the critical plays in the game, and the Bengals went for it on 4th down quite a bit in this one. And the Chargers
probably should have kept doing it the way their kicker was kicking at the end too.
Yeah, of course. Evan McPherson missing a couple of field goals, but hey, like those fourth down calls right there, like that's just you having to finish the job. I know it sucks. You
Yeah.
get through 3 downs and you feel like you're about to get off the football field, but you can't relax. Like you can't relax in those moments on fourth down. You have to be super hyper focused and finish it. And unfortunately, the Chargers have had a couple of lapses in that concentration in those moments.
In every bad defensive game they've had a big play like the one they gave up to Higgins. I mean, even the Titans game, you had the one to Calvin Ridley, wide open, second and third and 15. And you have somebody getting free. So definitely some parts of the back end they have to do, and with their disguises and everything they're trying to do, maybe that's bound to happen with this defense, but they're so good. And I don't think this really pushes me about how high I am on this Chargers defense. But the Chargers offense had to score a season high to win this game, and they found a way to do it. And that's just complimentary football to an extent. So we will have more to get into, including how big this was in the grand scheme of things in the playoff pictures, because this gave the Chargers a huge boost, and we're going to get into some unsung heroes and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, because right now you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's it. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, all you have to do is go to their command center where you can see how every game is going, kind of feel out the flow of the game. So if you're going to do that live in-game betting, you know how it goes. Now, usually, like today's game, I probably would have been like, okay, Chargers are going to lose. Give me everything on the Bengals. But they found a way not to do it. And if you guys want to get in the action for next week, the Harbaugh Bowl, Jim Harbaugh versus John Harbaugh, the best way to do it is at FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, David, well, one thing we haven't talked about yet was just kind of the big picture of today's win, and with the Chargers actually being, at this point in the season, 7-3 for the first time since 2018, we can talk about the playoff scenario every week, and it's not like, hey, well, if the Chargers win their last 7 games in a row, and these 4 teams lose 5 out of the last 7, the Chargers have a 16% chance to get in the playoffs. That's not what we're looking at this year. We're looking at the Chargers right in the thick of things and really putting themselves in a great position by basically killing one of the 2 or 3 other teams that will have the best shot of taking their playoff spot away. But thank you to the everydayers for making us your first listen, especially after a big win like this, with the Chargers winning their 4th consecutive game to get to 7-3. If you guys need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL and their new slate, 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman rolling, and in the barbershop with my boy Tony Wiggins as they bring on the local experts who cover their teams every day on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. But David, you could say there was a huge swing by the Chargers for both teams, really, but for the Chargers in their playoff chances after beating a team, one of the few teams that could potentially catch them for a wild card spot.
Yes, there was, and this one was huge, and I think PFF really illustrated it beautifully here. The Chargers, with a loss in this game, their playoff chances would have decreased to 68%. With a win, their chances have increased to 93%. So when I said before this game, if they get this win, they all but punch their ticket to the playoffs. That's pretty much exactly what happened here. And not only that, but because of this win over the Bengals, the Chargers are now leapfrogging the Ravens, and they are the 5th seed in the AFC right now.
Yeah, I didn't see the Ravens loss coming. It's crazy how bad Lamar and the Ravens have been. I mean, against the Steelers recently. That Steelers team, looking like a real legitimate AFC contender. And I mean, you look at who the Chargers lost to, right? It's division leaders all around, basically. So yeah. I think what this gives you also is just knowing that you can go beat an elite quarterback, that you can beat a team. So easy to say, they're better than what their record is now at 4-7, but you're talking about a team that was 1 point away from beating the Chiefs. Overtime loss to the Ravens in another game against the Ravens where they're a 2-point conversion away from pulling off a big upset. Like, that's a team that can beat anyone on any given Sunday, and you didn't let it happen. And those are the kind of games you have to win. Now, I'm not going to go as far as you and saying, hey, but they basically punched their ticket, right? Because they're at 7 wins, and 7 wins doesn't get you in the playoffs, right? Of
course.
You still have to win 3 more games to feel pretty good about it. 4 more games you're winning, you're feeling great about it.
They're well on their way, though, for sure.
well on their way. I mean, it's going to be very hard for the Colts. I mean, who have a pretty soft schedule, and Anthony Richardson, it feels like a time bomb that, is going to blow up in one of these games and blow it for them. But they won, right? So they're 5-6 now. They can still get to 10-7. It's very feasible for them, right? Even be, 11-6. I don't think they're winning out. But this is the other good thing, right? Broncos still have to play the Bengals and the Colts, right? The Bengals can beat either of those teams, first of all. Yeah. The Broncos and the Colts are, now that the Bengals have lost, your two main competitors for that, last playoff spot, even if you're in the 5th seed right now, obviously.
Yeah.
These are all teams that could potentially bump you out, and you have a very tough schedule, and the Ravens can get right back on top of you next week if they beat you, right? And then they'll make it very hard. But now the best the Bengals can do is 10-7. If the Chargers get to 10 wins, it's impossible for the Bengals to knock them out. So that's why this is so huge, because of that team. But David, let's talk about some unsung heroes like we've done recently, and you have to, I think, start with someone who it's hard to say is unsung at this point, and that's Tuipulotu, because every week you're like, okay, maybe, this is the week he doesn't get a sack. No, it's not.
It's
right?
not.
Because now 7 sacks, David, 7 sacks over the last few games. Like, that's crazy, right? Like this is crazy that we're seeing this from Tuli
last year, all of last year,
and now he has 7 in 3 games.
That's a joke. It's so much fun to watch him out there, because Tuli, he's sitting behind Khalil Mack, a first ballot future Hall of Famer, and Joey Bosa, who when he's healthy, and he played probably the most snaps that he's played in a very, very long time in this game. So hats off to Joey out there. But Tuli is a madman. 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. It's really awesome to see him get his kind of just due, his just reward, putting in all the dirty work, playing on special teams. To see him go out there and be able to throw the tees up a couple more times is very gratifying for me, because Tuli is the future of the pass rushing department for the Chargers. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah, I meant 7 in 4 games, but that means he's averaging over 1.5 sacks per game over his last 4 games. Like, that's how hot this dude's been. And it's hard to say at all that it's a fluke, right? Like, we already know he's an elite run defender. For him to do this as a pass rusher and to take that next step is crazy. Even though Joey Bosa had a bad missed sack, I thought he had some really big moments in this game too. Had some hits. They were battering Joe Burrow. Don't let the 3 sacks fool you in this one. I mean, the pressure was a lot better than that. Could have been better late, but like I said, they got hung up by their offense a little bit. How about Will Dissly, David? I think he's been an unsung hero all year. And this game's probably the least unsung hero, because he actually just went off. 4 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Finally gets into the end zone. Catches the ball when he gets a perfect pass into the end zone. It was great to see that dude get rewarded because of the dirty work he's been putting in.
Yeah, I mean, he was brought in to be, the premier blocking tight end for the Chargers, and he has excelled in that. But nobody expected him to not only be the premier blocking tight end, but to be the premier pass-catching tight end on this roster as well. So the Chargers gave him a pretty nice contract, and right now, I mean, with all the things he's doing, it looks like that contract was a bargain, a big-time bargain for Will Dissly. It's great to see him be able to get there and get the receptions and really kind of get some more respect around the league about his all-around skill set. He said, I'm not just a blocking tight end. I am a all-around tight end, and you better account for me.
Absolutely, man. And like, also, if we're talking about, unsung heroes, I know you brought up Poona Ford, absolutely deserves it. One of the more underrated signings, has a big sack in this game, ties his career high with 3 sacks already this season, plus what he's been able to do against the run. Tier Tart, another dude who makes a big play in the backfield, right? Like, these dudes have been playing out of their mind. Deion Henley, hard to say he's an unsung hero, but we shouldn't get used to stat lines like 11 tackles, 5 solo, 1 pass breakup, which should have been 2 because he hit a pass off of T. Higgins' leg that bounced back up into his hands.
When freaking lap.
2 pass breakups on T. Higgins after that dude's been torching the rest of your defense. The answer is Deion Henley to get out there and cover him. We shouldn't take those performances for granted. I do want to say Rashawn Slater, though, right? Yeah. Got a big holding call in a bad moment that pulled away a first down. But, like, the only way the Chargers lose this game and don't look good offensively, which, yes, they had a lull. They put up 34 points. It's a full touchdown more than they've scored the rest of the season. Had their best offensive half of football that we've seen from them all season, putting up 24 in the first half. That doesn't happen unless Rashawn Slater can hold his own against Trey Hendrickson. offensive linemen, especially this offensive line, probably don't get the flowers they deserve when they deserve them enough. But Rashawn Slater, man, he's going to be an unsung hero for me because Trey Hendrickson didn't take over this game, and he's taken over quite a few this year.
Yeah, after giving up, kind of a big-time sack early on in the game, Rashawn Slater really buckled up and really strapped Trey Hendrickson for most of that game. And obviously Trey Hendrickson was leading the NFL in sacks and has been a true difference maker. Fortunately for the Chargers, they have Rashawn Slater, and Rashawn Slater took care of business after that early slip-up.
Yeah, and he's just been awesome, man. Putting together another all-pro season in my book, but
Without
just
a
a huge
doubt.
win for the Chargers. And
Massive win.
yes, there's some things they can take away from this. There's some negatives they can take away from this, but there's a lot to build on this. This is a 7-3 football team, and they just showed you they can beat elite quarterbacks like the ones that they're going to play in the playoffs, like a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. And these are really, really good tests for a team that looks like they're going to make the playoffs in year one of Jim Harbaugh and are ahead of schedule. And feels like once they get there, look out, man, because I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to play them. But you know what tomorrow is. It's Buy or Sell Tuesday, talking about this gigantic win. The Chargers reeling off 4 wins in a row, which feels like it honestly should be 6 without a slip up against the Arizona Cardinals, which feels crazy. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow for Buy or Sell. Hit us up at LockedOnLAC on Twitter to get your buy or sells and get your biggest storylines or overreactions into us, or call into 323-524-7924 on the Locked On Chargers voicemail line. Get your 30-second buy or sell in there as well. But super excited. Should be a great week of shows. The Chargers ramp up and continue to have big tests going forward. And now you feel like they could beat anyone on the rest of their schedule after the performance and what we saw. We saw what they can be. We saw how really good they could be. We also saw the downside of it. So this team can pull it together. They're going to be a scary team come January, which is exactly where we need to see them come through with Jim Harbaugh. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for Buy or Sell Tuesday. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.